And welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is the one about Willie Nelson. Thank you for listening. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm alright, you alright?
Yeah, I'm really alright, because you found the autobiography of Willie Nelson in the thrift shop, and got to be honest, that's a book I would never have picked up and read. That's why I love doing this podcast.
Yes.
Because now we're just reading books of people we would never have read before.
Exactly.
Oh God, I found it so interesting.
Neither of us are massively knowledgeable about country, are we?
No, you've been to Nashville a couple of times.
I have.
Oh, I think you would love Dolly.
Yeah, I do. Alright, I do. But I'm not a knowledge on it, weirdly. I'm
Okay.
just a country tourist.
All right.
I don't listen to it at home.
So were you a fan of Willie?
We'll have to get that out of the way. Have a good giggle. I don't really know him. I couldn't name one song of his at all,
Okay.
right, when I started reading the book. And then I went, oh, that's Willie Nelson. Oh, yeah, of course, I know that song.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like that.
I'm only aware of him from his crossover hits, which
Like
are
what?
mainly... He did one with Julio Iglesias.
What is that?
To All the Girls I've Loved Before.
Oh, I meant to listen to it.
It's
I got round to it.
it's a standard that a few people have done, but the one that Willie Nelson and Julio did in the beginning
Julio.
of the 80s kind of crossed over. And of course, he had a big hit at the beginning of the 80s with Always on My Mind.
Yeah,
like
I didn't
the
really
country-
realise that, you see, because I just know Elvis. So, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, We Are the World.
Yeah.
I keep coming back to
isn't
We
in
Are
that?
the World.
We're going to, we have to read everybody who's in We Are the World.
Oh my
eventually.
God,
That'd be
that
great,
should have
wouldn't
been
it?
the premise of the
Yeah.
podcast. Just, but I love We Are the World anyway, as we've talked about before in this podcast many times. He has his little bit with Dionne Warwick.
Yeah.
And their voices go together so beautifully. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, they should have recorded an album together.
Yes.
Because Willie Nelson has duetted with so many people.
Yeah, he has, hasn't he?
And yet, I don't think he's done one with Dionne Warwick.
No. Okay, the man's 90. When was this book published? It was like 88, I think? It was
No,
1988?
no, he was 82 when he wrote it. It's recent. It's like in the last 10 years.
Have we got two different copies
No.
Does yours go on to past 1988?
Yeah, it goes on to the present day.
No way, we've got two different copies.
What?
Well, you'll have to fill in the last bit, because mine stops in 1988.
What's yours called? A Long Story.
Oh, where is it?
So you've read a different book.
Yeah, maybe we ought to talk about it beforehand.
Oh my...
It just says Willie, an autobiography.
Okay, the one that I've read is called Willie. It's a long story.
Well, it got longer, obviously, after 1988. That's really interesting, because I really want to know what happened to him after 1988, so I'll hand it over
All
to you.
right. Oh, wow. Look at your book. No, look, this is mine.
Is it completely different?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, I don't know if it's completely different, but we'll have to...
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so he was born in 1933.
So he was born right in the middle of the Great Depression, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In Texas.
Abbott, Texas. And he just says, I am an itinerant singer and guitar picker. The person he was, this poor farm boy, is kind of like who he still is.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed him at all. He's quite a dude. It's also the wild, wild west, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a cowboy film, his life. And it feels like everyone around him are these characters that he's picked up along the way, and they've remained those same people as well.
Yeah.
His best mates are
So
has
if
a
you...
laugh with and played this music with. What?
Yeah. Oh, the book kind of gets sad towards the end, but you won't know about
no.
that because you don't have the updated
Oh my
version.
God, does everyone die? Right.
Well, of course.
Of course
'cause
everyone
they're all
dies. People
old.
die. Yeah, and if you live this fast, you don't get to live to 90. It's amazing.
Oh, Willie did.
Well, he has, but yeah, it's unlikely that most of the people with him will have made it to 90 as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, you'll have to tell us that at the end.
All right.
I'll become a listener.
Anyway, at the beginning...
Yeah, 1931 his sister Bobby was born, Bobby Lee. His mum was 15 when she married his dad, who was 16.
His mum and dad are young,
Yeah.
but they're real free spirits, right? So they have these two children, very young, very close to each other, Willie and his sister Bobby. And by the time Willie is 6 months old, his parents divorce.
Yeah.
They're, 18 at this point?
His mum left first.
Right.
His mum left to go and play in bands and sing, and she was a waitress and she dealt cards.
Yeah.
She loved the honky tonks. Basically says I was really like my mum.
Yeah. And
She didn't want to settle.
so because the mum and dad kind of flee quite soon, Willie and Bobby are brought up by the grandparents.
Yeah, which is the dad's parents. And by the way, this surprised me, his history. His dad's family side were sort of English and Irish immigrants. So their music is really folk and music from the old country, and his dad played the guitar a lot. His mum was a native.
She's 3/4 Cherokee.
Yeah, he's half native and half Irish and English descent. So that's an amazing mix. Because you think of him as a cowboy in country music, and that's kind of the historical enemy of cowboys and Indians. He's snuck in there.
He's being brought up by his granny and granddad, who are music teachers.
Yeah.
And Sister Bobby is literally a prodigy on the piano from a young age, and the whole local town, like the school, everyone knows it. She's hot on the piano.
And it's very church again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gospel.
It's similar to Nina Simone, actually.
It is.
It's like a little girl who was just amazing on the piano, and so everybody wanted a piece of her. The community, the church, the school.
Yeah.
And Willie, obviously, is a couple of years younger, but he got into the guitar, and it was his granddad who got him the guitar, but then, rather sadly, his granddad didn't last an awful lot longer.
His dad died when he was 7.
Granddad.
Yeah, and he was 56. Yeah, Willie Nelson's dad also, he was a guitar player as well, and when he left he went to join bands and play gigs and stuff.
So there's music there from since they were born. That's
what I mean, the native heritage is really musical as well. The Irish, it's folk. What is really fascinating is that their granddad was a blacksmith, the grandma, everybody else, they just went to the cotton fields to pick cotton. It was the only work there was, especially in the Depression. They got so little for it, like $1 a day or something. And they needed that money. Yeah. So even the little kids, as kids, they were picking cotton. But he says that in those fields, you got whole groups of black people singing their blues. You got whole groups of Mexicans singing their music, and English and Irish singing their old country tunes. And the whole lot blended. And it was an awesome sound, he says. Isn't that amazing to imagine? That's the only good thing came out of those bloody fields, isn't it? The music.
Yeah.
But he said, it sure did teach me the blues. That's really cool, isn't it? Yeah. That's before they even had a radio. That's where he heard all his music.
And that's hugely influential when you're that age. When you think about when you're 5, 6 years old, I mean, that music really stays with you your whole life. It really imprints on you. So actually being in the fields, listening to that music being created.
Yeah, I guess you're joining in as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because it gets you through the day. I'd love to hear all those different people's music blending together like that. Of course, I don't want to be in the middle of a cotton field.
No, but do you know what? Some of those early record companies, Svengali people who ripped all those people off, literally took recording equipment out into the fields and the front porches and did record them. I bet you could hear it somewhere.
Howling Wolf and all that lot, That's as raw as straight out the fields onto a record.
Do you know what, actually, that's an interesting bit. I know this is jumping ahead, but one thing that Willie Nelson really makes sure of his whole career is that he doesn't want his records overproduced. And if anything, he'll do everything he can to really keep it at that raw level, even though the record companies say to him, no, this sounds like a demo. He says, no, this is music. This is raw music. So that's interesting, actually, that's what's been instilled in
that's
him.
What he heard first, not a engineered product, but just music in a field. Yeah, it's true. But he says, my desire to escape from manual labour started in the cotton fields of my childhood and cannot be overestimated. It also did his back in. His back problem started from cotton picking as a kid.
Yeah, it is back breaking all day long.
Yeah. And then imagine this kind of helped, that he was really into comics and he thought he was Superman. Because this chapter that his sister wrote that said he used to put a cape on and jump off the roof and knock himself out cold. That can't have helped.
This is a completely different book.
Oh my God.
Because you've got people having their own chapters and stuff.
Oh, and you don't?
No.
Amazing.
Wow. We should do the podcast like this. We should read different books by the same person. See, because we bring different things to the...
Well, that's weird we've done it by accident this time, because,
Mind you, most people don't have 2 autobiographies. It's just because he's 90.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
But he's also, him and his sister are like so musical, but also one thing that little Willie knows he's really good at is writing poetry and lyrics and stuff. So even before he's 10, he's actually putting together a songbook. Yeah. The titles of the songs, oh my God, they really made me laugh. Because bearing in mind he's 8 or 9, he's writing songs called things like I Guess I Was Born to Be Blue, Faded Love and Wasted Dreams. The storm has just begun. I'll wander alone.
Oh,
Like...
right. Yeah, really melancholy. But I've got to say that he says when he was 7 and his grandpa died, he started writing heartbreak songs.
Oh.
So he thinks it didn't really affect him, but when he then thinks about it, I think maybe that's actually was how he was dealing with his grief.
Oh, do you know what? That's so tough for that little boy. His mum and dad have gone.
Yeah.
And didn't take him and his sister with them.
No,
they just
still,
went.
They're in the world. They just don't care about their kids.
Yeah, so then he has that to deal with, lives with his granny and granddad, and then his granddad dies, who he adores.
Yeah.
He was born to sing the blues.
He was born to be on the road as well. There's that song is still moving to me. He can't stay still.
No, he realises that at various times in his life.
Yeah.
If he gets a residency somewhere, he literally goes crazy and he just wants to keep moving. Like his mum and dad.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly his mum. She actually moved all over the country all the time. Doesn't make life easy. He also says he has an overabundance of energy, which we find a lot in people who are overachievers.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be doing something all the time, and actually gets into smoking weed to sort of knock down a bit of his energy, to almost try and reach a bit of a normal level of energy.
Yeah. So him and his sister are known locally as these prodigious musical talents. And then when he was 10, he was invited to play in a band in a bar. And it was a big family band, 15 people, by this guy called John Raychek.
Yeah.
And they played a lot of polka music and stuff. And he actually said he doesn't think that his little guitar added much. But I think John really liked this young kid who was so good, and he wanted him on stage.
It's really good. It would have taught him so much.
Yeah, and of course Granny really frowned, because she was a God-fearing woman, really, really frowned on him playing in a bar at the age of 10. And then he said to her, "Oh, how much do you earn picking cotton?" And she said, however much. He said, "I got $10 for playing in the bar tonight."
Right.
So Granny quickly
turned
a blind eye. So that's great at 10.
Yeah, that's
he's
really
getting...
good. So his sister at 16 married this bloke called Bud, who was a few years older. And he took them out of their town playing gigs and stuff and got them on local radio playing live, which made him think that he was a star. He says, "When I was a teenager, I was already a legend in my own mind." And he was giving people autographs and stuff.
Oh, and he says at the age of 14, some girls at school started the Willie Nelson fan club.
Yeah, and they bought him a country music outfit, didn't they? His first proper suit. It's really good. He obviously is magnetic to girls.
Yeah.
I have to say, though, I've Googled him a bit and watched some early Willie Nelson, like when he's at the Grand Ole Opry. I'd never seen him without a beard.
Yeah, no, I hadn't.
I would, if you'd have said, "Who's this?" I'd have said, "I have no idea.
Yeah.
Never seen that face."
Quite clean cut, actually. And I was surprised, like Waylon Jennings and all those other people, back in the day, they kind of were much more clean cut to what they evolved to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just 50s style versus 70s style.
I would say it is, and also, they were following the trend, and you had to have short hair and couldn't have a beard.
Yeah.
Especially in their world. He describes how the hippie scene mixed with the cowboy scene, which he was very much a forerunner of.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. When you think about when the hippies started ushering in mid to late 60s, society were appalled at the fact that men had long hair. Yeah. So back in the 60s, people like Willie and Waylon and stuff, they were clean cut. They were clean shaven and had short hair.
I'll tell you what, though, there's long hair and there's having 2 braids.
I would say now, when you think about him, his whole career, his defining image in my head is with the braids.
Yeah.
I think it could be, thinking back to his roots, it's very Cherokee to have hair like that.
It could be a nod to his heritage, It's pretty cool. And he really did define a whole new wave of country people. Well, which they called themselves outlaws, and it became outlaw music.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to that.
So Bud Fletcher, his sister's new husband, he was a bit of a promoter. He was very get up and go, and he got them gigs and stuff, and he got them on the radio. But then that kind of rubbed off on Willie.
It's gonna burn.
He started promoting himself. Now, there was this singer and band that he loved called Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. And little 14-year-old Willie actually staged a concert and got Bob Wills to come and play. And it happened and everybody came and it was brilliant. He said, well, he didn't make any money, but that wasn't the point, really.
Yeah.
He just wanted to make it. And he wanted to see Bob Wills play live.
Yeah. I would actually say it's never been the point to make the money.
Do you know what? Obviously, much later in life, he has proper money troubles. And I get that because he just handed it over to somebody else.
He doesn't want to know about money.
It's all about the music for him.
It is all about music.
Yeah. But he said that night when Bob Wills came to play, he just stood in the audience and he said it was just a real education. Not so much even the singing and the playing, but just how Bob Wills captivated an audience right from the beginning and took them on a journey and slowed things down and sped things up again. So that was a real education for little Willie Nelson in showmanship, I suppose, and connection with an audience.
Yeah. Well, the war's coming and he was really nervous about getting drafted. So he thought he'd preempt it and enlisted in the Air Force.
This is a Korean war, right, in 1951?
Yeah, and the first thing they did is shave his long hair off. So he already had long hair. Don't know how long.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been that long. No, just longer than shaved. And they pretty soon got him lifting boxes and he got a back injury, which made him spend 2 to 3 months in hospital. But he got out at night and was playing on the barracks and meeting girls and all that. Then eventually he got, what do you call it? Disability. Discharged.
Yeah.
Horrible word.
Especially for somebody called Willie.
Oh! Yes. But it got him out of being drafted after that, so that's kind of lucky.
And then he went back to music.
He went back to Abbott, put a band together. He was 18 at that point, free to go. And then he bloody met Trouble.
Martha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he met his match in Martha, actually.
He did, actually. True. So she was absolutely beautiful. He's 18, she's 16. And they ran off and got married. Ended up living with Grandma.
Yeah.
His grandma. They really soon, because she was totally beautiful. And he was really jealous. But they were jealous of each other.
Yeah.
She's beautiful and waitressing and really good in bar work. And all the blokes are after her. And meanwhile, Willie's in a band, so all the girls are after him.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
It was a tempestuous relationship.
Yes.
But I tell you something, young Martha was the one who supported them both most of the time. Because Willie, because he's chasing music, which isn't that well paid, and because he's not always getting music jobs, he's going off and doing little jobs elsewhere, and he's not hacking them. He's not staying in those jobs. Yeah. Martha is the one who holds down the jobs and brings the money home, which actually enables Willie to do music a lot of the time.
That's true. Even after she's knocked out 3 kids within the first 7 years, she's still out working bars.
Yeah, she is. Everywhere they go, because they move around a lot, she goes out the same day, she'll get a job waitressing to get the money to feed the family. They had a very rocky relationship. But she's a good person. Yeah. She's a good partner to have.
They beat each other up a lot.
He never hit her.
Did he not?
No, she hit him.
Is that way round?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he said she'll take a good beating, but she gives one back even worse.
No, is that
read those words?
In the book that I read, he says he's really proud to say that he never raised a hand to her.
Oh, right, okay. Maybe it was just verbal.
Unless he's talking about her fighting with somebody else in a bar.
Maybe. Oh, yeah, because there's at one point where she was throwing glasses at him and one hit that bloke Hank. And he had to go to hospital and it ruined his face.
Oh my gosh, she's actually a nightmare, isn't she?
Possibly, yes, because...
No, come on, what kind of woman throws glasses at people's heads in a bar? A nightmare.
Yes, and she says, in her chapter in my book anyway, it says... Oh, everyone always talks about the time where I sewed Willie up in his bedsheet and then beat him because he was sewed up. And she goes, what sort of fool would do that? I'm not going to spend the time sitting there sewing. I tied him up and then when he woke up, I beat him and he couldn't move. It's like, right, okay. And they both cheated on each other as well. He was cheating on her loads, but he found out she was cheating and he went round like, I'm going to kill the man. Because in his mind, even though he was brought up by church-going people, if your woman is cheating on you, you have every right to go and kill them, and Texas law will back that up. But then he found out years later that it didn't technically back you up. But nevertheless, he'd known quite a lot of people who had been killed in these exact circumstances, and nobody had gone to prison.
Wow.
Literally, there's so many stories in this book of them saying things like, yeah, well, it was a shootout, and if one person's bullets run out, that means they get killed. That doesn't make it murder, and nobody goes to prison, especially not in Texas.
Wow.
The one who dies is the one whose bullets run out. and that's not considered murder. It's technically self-defense.
Gosh.
It's the wild, wild west.
None of this is in my book. I'm fascinated.
What?
I think we should swap books.
I think we should, because I'm literally gobsmacked at this. There's a bit written by this woman, Marge Lund, who used to own the Night Owl beer joint. And she talks about how loyal Willie is, because when she shot and killed her brother-in-law, right, because he hadn't taken his medication and he was coming at her, so she shot and killed him, he phoned up and said, "Don't worry, I'm going to be there for you." And he turned up at court to give her a character reference. And he said, if she's killed her brother-in-law, she must have had a damn good reason. And so she got off.
Oh, my
This is what I mean. It's crazy.
It is. It's lawless.
It's the cowboys and it's the Western shootout madness. It's a world so far away from our British world. It's so nuts. They live the cowboy life.
Look, it's interesting because our books are the same size.
Yeah, that's
so they've
weird.
obviously, to include all the new stuff
They've
that
had
I
to
have,
knock out
they've
all
had
the
to knock out a
violence.
lot of the old stuff. And maybe they think stuff that would have
That we might find absolutely appalling now.
now in the
Everyone gets let off
1980s,
murder.
everybody, wow.
I don't find it appalling. I find it absolutely fascinating. Because those cowboy and western films that my granddad watched every Saturday afternoon are real. Oh, should we talk about that shootout that he had whilst we're talking about shootouts with his... Is this in your book?
With his daughter's boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is in my book.
Oh,
This is like
that's
the
the one shootout that's actually in your book. His first daughter marries when she's 16. They've come to visit, her husband coming to talk to them, but she stayed in the car. And so someone goes out to see her and she's got black eyes.
Yeah, he's beating her up.
Yeah, so he's so livid. He drives to their house and knocks him around, beats him up. See, he does beat people up. He said he grew up fighting.
Yeah, you would beat people. If your 16-year-old daughter came to your house beaten up and it was her husband who'd done it and you were the dad, you'd go and beat that husband up.
He's a fighter. So he goes, knocks him around, goes home. Well, obviously that bloke went, "I'm going to kill Willie," and drove to Willie Nelson's house and shot at the house. They're all in the house screaming and getting down and it's blowing out the windows and stuff. And Willie's taking the odd shot out of the window, but he drives off. But then he comes back and they had a proper full-on shootout because Willie had gone and hidden his car so that they'd think he was out. And he's staking out his own house. So when he comes back, Willie's taking shots at the car, blows his tyres out. The police are called. Well, they're trying to get by. He says, "Oh, he must have driven over some bullets." It actually says in the book, the police say they don't want to get involved in hillbilly fights.
Yeah, right. Police don't get involved in domestic disturbances. They don't.
Do they not?
No.
Well, they call it the Ridgetop Shootout, and it's become sort of family history that everyone thinks is hilarious. Yeah, it's hilarious.
But it's hilarious
when you had a
because
shootout.
it's hilarious because nobody died.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That could have been the end of Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Or he could be in prison for killing his son-in-law.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's madness, isn't it? It's madness.
So, at this point in his life, he's with Martha. They got 3 kids, I think, at this point. There's a lot of moving about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of him with his guitar going into bars and trying to get jobs playing and stuff. Sometimes he's successful, other times he isn't. They go back to live with his mum in Oregon. They go to Washington, I think. They go here and there. Martha is the one who's keeping the family together by working hard.
He's doing a bit of DJing on the radios as well. That's
Nearly
fun.
everywhere he goes, he gets like a radio show. At this point in his life, what is he, early 20s?
Yeah.
He's more known and has had more success as a DJ.
Yeah. More steady work, anyway, yeah.
He's popular because, of course, he's a good personality.
Yeah.
And he has a
And
great
he's confident.
voice.
He thinks he's a legend.
Every town he goes to, his way in is getting on to the local radio station. Here's something which blew my mind. His first recording that he recorded, him and his guitar, he did with the equipment in a radio station. And that's how he recorded his first song. Presses up a few 7-inch singles and he's got a radio show so he can play it and he can say to people, "Send me your money and I will post you out a single." And that's what he did. That his first release. God, I wonder how much they are worth now.
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
They'd be real collector's items, wouldn't they? And then when he's in that town, May Axton turns up, who is a colleague of Colonel Tom Parker, who was Elvis's manager.
She wrote Heartbreak Hotel, didn't she?
She wrote Heartbreak Hotel, yeah. She doesn't do too much for him, but she listens to his music. She really thinks he's got something. And she says to him, "You can't stay here in this little town. Nobody's ever going to find you. go back to Texas because it's a bigger playing field, but also you need to end up in Nashville. That planted the thing in his head, okay, it gives him something, a plan. So he does go back to Texas for a short while. He meets Waylon Jennings around this time. They obviously hit it off. And then Waylon has a manager called Neil Reshan. He is Willie's long-term manager. And of course, he's the guy that says to Willie, don't worry about money, anything like that. I will take care of it all for you. And Willie says, what about taxes? He says, it's my speciality. Don't worry, you just make the music. I will take care of everything. And to someone like Willie, like we said, who's completely creative, isn't in it for the money, I really get how he just said to this guy, okay, you take care of anything. Thank you very much.
Really annoying for his wife, Martha, who's like...
Yeah, right.
She says as soon as he starts getting gigs, she's just spending it all on hotels and having a great time.
Oh, somebody says to him at one point, one of his team says to him, you've got to pull in your spending. Because then they'll go and play a gig in the next town and he'll get like the suite and the hotel and he'll invite everybody back for a party using his own money. Yep. I guess it's because he's never had it. It's like easy come,
he's just having a good time, but that's all very well. Then don't have kids. Back to that old thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing with him, just the mentality. So when they have 3 kids and he's like 24... they think nothing of moving to yet another town without any job prospects to move to. They'll go and they'll just get a small apartment. It's like, you're 24, you have 3 kids and a wife. What is it in the personality that doesn't say, okay, I have to be responsible and I have to stay here and provide for my family? He's almost putting himself first all the way along. Yeah. So I need to go and do music. It's not working here. Let's go. Oh, I'll bring the family with me.
Well, it's either that or leaving him behind, isn't it? Like his parents did.
Yeah, see, so staying with them is just not an option. It's just something not in his blood.
No.
Well, then you're right. He should just never have had
but
children.
they always do. Anyway, he was nearly 27 when he moved to Nashville.
So he took May's advice and he ended up in Nashville,
It really wasn't working for him. It says at that point, Nashville was really bluegrass. And it's hard to really get my head around exactly what it is he's playing, but it's his own thing. It's got a root in country, gospel, blues, folk. It's like a mashup of all these things, and I'm not an expert on this because I've had to piece this together through the book. What exactly is his music, but it doesn't fit into the niche at the time. The Nashville sound was really specific. He didn't exactly slot in.
He also has a very unique singing style.
Yeah.
He either sings just before the beat or just after it, which is really unusual. And in fact, he's lost singing jobs because people are saying to him, you're not singing properly. He says, well, that's how I sing.
Got so much musicality in him, he doesn't need to sing exactly on the note because he'll find his way, and he's telling a story always and everything.
It's then when he's hanging out with jazz musicians and stuff, he realises that his voice is actually way more how a black person may sing through jazz and R&B because he doesn't adhere to the timing.
Yeah, it's cool, hey. So he struggles in Nashville because they didn't really like his voice. They covered it with horns and orchestrations and stuff, and that wasn't what he wanted. They wouldn't let his band play, and they never promoted his albums. They made them but didn't promote them. So he actually thinks the only reason they made these albums was so they had them recorded, so they could play them to their bigger stars and say, do you want any of these songs? It was almost like an elaborate calling card for his songs, because he's an amazing songwriter. Yes. I've learned that through this book. They just flow out of him. And it's his songs, really, that have made him legendary, the writing of them. Mm-hmm. So they make these albums and other people go, I like that one, I'll have that. And that was what was going on. But his wife, Martha, was very instrumental in pushing things on for him because she was working as a waitress
in a cocktail bar.
80s kids. And Farron Young came in. He was a big star at the time, and all the girls were hustling around him. And she said, you should go and hear my husband. He's playing over the road. So he crossed the road and came back half an hour later saying, I've just got me a song. And it was Hello Walls.
Hello Walls. Well, what's funny about Hello Walls, I don't know if this is in your book. So he gets the job as a songwriter.
Yeah, they stick him in a room.
Yeah. And now he's got the pressure. He's always written songs his whole life. Now he's got a $50 a week job, 9 to 5 in an office. And he sat in there and he suddenly gets writer's block for the first time in his life because the pressure's on.
Yeah.
And so he sat there thinking, oh my God, they're going to be asking me what I'm coming up with. And so he literally sat in a room.
Going, hello walls.
Hello walls, hello ceiling.
Yeah.
And then he turns it into a song thinking it's rubbish.
Yeah.
And then when the guy comes back and says, well, what have you written today? well, I've written this song about speaking to the walls, and the guy goes, oh my God, it's a #1 smash. And yet then Farron Young hears it, loves it, and it goes all the way to #1 in the country charts.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So he's getting somewhere now.
He's getting somewhere. It's 1961. Farron Young records Hello Walls. Patsy Cline records Crazy. Right. Did you know Willie Nelson wrote Crazy?
No, I did not know that.
Did I?
Yeah.
No idea.
No
so
idea.
I was going, I don't know any Willie Nelson songs.
Yeah.
He wrote Crazy.
I would say it's arguably one of the most famous songs of all time. Yeah. And I had no idea Willie Nelson wrote it. He played it to her husband first, and he said, oh, Patsy will love it. Let me go and play it to her. And Willie Nelson's like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, it doesn't matter. So he goes home, and Willie Nelson, he's so embarrassed it's 1 o'clock in the morning and Patsy Cline is in bed that he refuses to go into the house. He sits in the car outside. Patsy Cline's husband goes in, wakes her up, plays her Crazy. She loves it so much. And she says, well, where is this guy? He's like, well, he's sat outside in the car. So she says, don't be stupid, go and get him. That's how they met. They got her out of bed to listen to Crazy. And of course, it's an amazing song. And of course, she sings it so beautifully. But when it went into the recording studio, it almost didn't happen because Patsy Cline tried to sing it in the way Willie Nelson sings it with his odd phrasing off the beat, and it just wasn't working at all. And in the end, somebody said to her, forget what he sang, turn it into your own, and that's the version that we have. Yeah, I'm amazed that he wrote that. I had no idea.
Yeah, me too. I was amazed. And then he says Billy Walker recorded Funny How Time Slips Away, and Ray Price recorded Nightlife. I don't know either of those people. And they all were massive hits. He was making a lot of money pretty soon after that.
You know, I can imagine the songwriting royalty for Crazy would make you for life.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. His first royalty check, $3,000. He went and found Farron Young in Tootsie's. I think he said he kissed him on the lips. Yeah. Because he was so happy. And he tried to pay him back a $500 loan. So many people believed in him and lent him money. It's so nice. He's
been helped up a lot. Even when he first went to Nashville, tried to sell his songs, and he said to Larry Butler, I've got some songs, they're $10 each. And Larry Butler's like, are you kidding? You can't sell these for $10. They're brilliant. Keep them. We'll get you a deal.
Didn't he lend him money as well? Like, people like, I think he did. He went, feed your family. Come back to me. He always went back to everyone. Yeah. Because he said, Farron Young said, I don't want your money, son. Wait till you can afford it and fatten a steer or something. And he said years later, he gave him a prize bull worth $38,000.
Yeah.
But that is so cowboy.
Yeah.
Just get me a prize bull sometime. Who would say that?
So massive success now, earning lots of money.
Yeah, but not as himself, as a songwriter.
As a songwriter, yeah. I think even the first song he sold didn't even have his name on the credit, but it didn't bother him because it proved to him that he could write a hit single.
Yes, that's right.
So he's getting all of this success, money's coming in, but unfortunately, as well as his career is going, his marriage is not going very well at all.
It hasn't gone very well since the start, to be fair.
So after 10 turbulent years together, him and Martha split up.
Yeah, they only split up because he's already fallen in love with somebody else.
My God, there's a lot
somebody else's wife. A DJ called Biff Colley. His wife, Shirley Colley, is a singer, and they've been paired together because their harmonies were amazing. He says the best harmony person he's ever sung with because she second-guessed him before he even sang, and she was spot on. Their brains were melded together. And I have listened to some of their duets, and they are gorgeous. Beautiful.
She's also a very good yodeler.
Yeah. And she's also very attractive.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before they're having a full-on affair in hotels downtown Nashville. He's not going home. So Martha's throwing glasses at his head in bars. And, oh my God, I think the very day it actually ended, she beat him up so much she got put in prison.
Oh, that's not good, is it?
Not great.
But do you know what? I'm not surprised. Sticking up for Martha here. She waited tables for 10 years.
Yeah.
Brought up 3 kids so Willie could do his music.
Sent people like Farron Young to get his song, really promoted him.
And music aside, Willie was a bit useless in getting... He's been an encyclopedia salesman. He's been a Hoover salesman. He's been a plumber's assistant. Yeah. He was tree trimming. He's rubbish at all of them because I can't imagine he was bringing much money home.
No.
Martha held the fort for 10 years, and when he takes off, he shagging Shirley Colley.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised Martha
pretty annoying.
went
Plus,
off the rails.
I listened to their duet willingly, and it's going, oh, we both had other people, but we fell in love with
Please
each
tell me
other
it doesn't sound like that.
willingly. It's got a crooning song about how they both fell in love with each other willingly, although they were both cheating. That's enough to make you want to smash glasses if you were his wife.
Yeah.
Pretty annoying. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's life. So that's what happened. And they got married, 1963, and they bought this massive farm.
And he's 30 years old at this point.
Yeah, he's 30s. He
So
thinks he's old.
He's made it by 30. He probably is old back then. It's
Yeah.
not like now.
Yeah, so he retires. He's got 100 grand a year coming in from royalties. He retires to be a farmer on 400 acres.
So he himself, other than a songwriter, he's not actually had, as a singer, performer, he's not had a hit record.
No, not at all.
So
I think a couple of those duets with Shirley get somewhere, but not really. His name isn't known. And of course he can't settle for 5 minutes, so he's back out on the road, but he leaves Martha in the farm. Sorry, he leaves Shirley, the amazing singer, in his farm, bringing up his 3 kids, because Martha's gone off and married someone else and stuff. She didn't want to be a mother. She wanted to be out the road. She's a musician.
she's a singer. She's a musician. She's a yodeler.
Yeah.
She wants to be on the road.
Yeah.
Willie Nelson says stay at home and look after the kids while he goes out on tour.
Yeah.
It's really naughty.
It is, isn't it? Because they were out on tour together before that.
Yeah.
So, of course, that marriage goes to shit because she's not happy.
And he's actually very honest about it. He says Shirley wants to come on the road with us, but I didn't want her to.
Because he wanted her at home raising the kids.
Then he should have just got a nice woman who wanted to do that.
I know.
Not a woman who had her own music career.
Maybe he liked pulling the birds out on the road.
Well, of course, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
He picks up Shirley one day and she gets in the car and he says she's shaking with rage because a letter has turned up for Willie. And she opens it up and it's a bill, but the bill is for the delivery of a baby.
And it says who the parents are. This woman, Connie.
Connie, yeah.
And Willie Nelson. You can't really say it wasn't me.
Oh my God. And he says, Connie, a beautiful young woman in her early 20s, had been my girlfriend for several years out on the road. So the whole time Shirley was on the farm bringing up his kids, he was out with a young... Of course, like you say, it's the woman in the fourth row every single time.
And it's more fun when they're not your wife.
Yeah.
Because he said the mistake is always marrying them and then it ruins it.
Well, they become somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's on Liberty Records. He records 3 or 4 albums, mediocre success, and then Liberty Records give up on him. And he's also, other people like Roy Orbison covers one of his songs, which is a massive hit.
Yeah.
So he's just hit that decade of real success in the music industry, mainly as a songwriter, but he is releasing records as himself, which grow in popularity, and he's getting on the country charts and stuff.
Yeah, he gets on the Grand Ole Opry.
Yep.
Which is big news.
It is, but that means for 26 weeks he's stuck in one place, and he's so used to touring and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
And that gets televised, right?
Yeah.
So his profile is really, really growing at this point.
And he starts to do his own TV show with his old hero, Ernest Tubbs. So, yeah, he's getting there.
So he's out on the road, he's doing every city, he's touring all the time. He's making albums, they're selling modestly, but he's far from being a superstar. He's far from being Willie Nelson, who we know. And it's around this time that he goes to the Atlanta Pop Festival and he's seeing Janis Joplin, Joe Cocker, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and he's saying, do you know what, especially like Janis and Joe, they're blues singers. So he's been in Nashville a lot, and it's been quite countrified, if you like, but what he's realising now is that there's a real crossover between the music he's been writing and other genres, like what you were talking about back when he was in the fields, and even from his own English-Irish ancestry mixed in with the Cherokee and stuff. At this point, I don't know, he's about 35 at this point. He's hanging out in other musical circles, going to festivals. This is where he notices, Led Zeppelin are here as well as the staple singers. So that's a real mix at this setting. So he's hanging out, and of course everybody's getting stoned.
Yeah, and it says that it's then that he realised all the young people love the music, and that's then that he grew his hair and a beard and got an earring and said, I'm one of you, to the hippies. And then eventually, pretty quick, a load of cowboys started growing their hair and wearing beads, and this whole new type of person was invented from that. Yes. It's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
It opened up country music to new styles and liberated it a bit.
Yeah, he's getting in, like with all the farmers and stuff, because obviously he has a farm. And then like this big Dripping Springs reunion in 1972, that's a big 3-day outdoor festival on a big ranch and stuff. And you're right, this is the place where all of the, I don't know what society would have thought of them as reprobates, all the hippies with their long hair smoking pot. And a lot of Willie's friends are very anti, like the cowboys are anti the hippies.
Yeah.
But Willie notices something in them through the music and through the pot. And a lot of people like Waylon Jennings are really anti Willie Nelson becoming part of this scene and even going to the festivals. They're like, why are you going and hanging out with these freaks? But Willie sees something there, mainly because of the music, mainly because of Janis Joplin, Led Zeppelin. They're all rooted in blues, all of these big
and the music
bands.
brings these completely different characters together, and then they actually start merging.
Yes. So it's around this time, I forget which record label he's with now, because he changes record labels as much as he changes cities and wives.
Yeah, tell you what he doesn't change, his T-shirt. I mean, he wears T-shirt, jeans and tennis shoes, and that is also unheard of.
Yeah,
he
right.
really was his own person. They said he could just pack a small bag.
That's what he loved about the hippies, though, is that he didn't have to cut his hair and he could wear the same jeans and T-shirt on stage all the time.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
So at some point, and sorry, because we're reading from two different books, he gets signed to Atlantic Records by Jerry Wexler. First of all, when I heard Atlantic Records, I thought, well, that's strange, because Willie Nelson is essentially country/blues, and Atlantic Records is famously soul. It's Atlantic Soul. It's Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles, who actually cross over, Ray Charles and Willie Nelson. But even though Atlantic Records is soul, they can't deny how big country is getting, and they open an arm in Nashville, and that's why they sign Willie Nelson. Willie is a bit apprehensive because he's like, oh no, what are they going to do to my music? But Jerry Wexler is like, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, he says, you play your music with your band exactly as you want.
Which he's not had before with a
never
record
had
label.
it, and he's about 40 at this point.
And what's interesting about that is the record labels he had before were more geared towards country.
Yeah.
He would turn music into them and they say, that's rubbish, that's not going to be a hit.
That's probably why then, isn't it? Because they were more open, because they didn't have a country sort of code.
You're right, and they're starting this new country arm, and who better to tell us what's
A
good?
new wave, it was a new wave. They must have sensed it, that he was taking it its own way. And they probably saw what he did to crowds. He had a big following on the circuit.
Yeah, and then the first thing he wants to do is a gospel album. Yeah. Because he kind of tests Jerry Wexler. Jerry Wexler says, you can do whatever you want. He says, all right then, I want to do a gospel album. And Jerry Wexler's like, brilliant, go on then.
Yeah.
Because they've obviously had massive success with that Aretha Franklin album. Is it Amazing Grace? There's a whole film of where she filmed it in a church. It's amazing. So Willie records a gospel album. And then he does another album quite quickly called Shotgun Willie. Yeah. Which is more of his roots stuff.
Yeah. Is that what they did in 3 days? So they laid down all the tunes in one day. Yeah. The next day they did all the fixings and anything that went a bit off. And the third day they mixed it.
Yeah, they did it so quickly that they actually were able to release Shotgun Willie before the gospel album, which he recorded first.
And it really sold.
Oh my God, it was massive.
And that's the one that I've been listening to it. It's great.
And it gets him like not just sales, but like airplay as well. Yeah. Whereas before, in the last decade, in the 60s, he's been more of a songwriter. Now in the 70s, he's really becoming Willie Nelson. Yeah. The performer, the singer.
In his 40s. It's nuts, isn't it, how long it took him?
Yeah.
I mean, he was doing all right. He was muddling along, but he just wasn't being Willie Nelson.
You think at the age of 40, having had a successful songwriting career, you probably kind of think, oh, this is going to be it now. I'm going to chug on nicely for the rest of my life as a songwriter. And
out of nowhere.
And I can tour. And then, all of a sudden you're pushed to the next level.
He's had many lives, hasn't he? When he got that, he thought, right, it's time to move. And where do I want to be? And he found Austin, Texas. He said it's really linked to San Francisco in vibe, and it's just a really left-wing part of redneck Texas, and that's where he really found his people. That's the right place for the right man. The outlet, the festivals, the other musicians was Austin. It's pretty cool. And then he bought Austin Opera House Complex. He was making so much money, he just kept buying this and that, and investing here and
Yeah,
there.
I mean, he just seemed to have like an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
He has quite an entrepreneurial brain as well. He's always looking for something to, if it's not a venue, it's a film, it's a festival.
Yes, yeah.
Because actually, it's around this time he does the first Willie Nelson 4th of July picnic. Yeah. Which is a big festival, essentially.
And he brings all of his mates to play. They're obviously top mates.
Yeah. And they think the first one, he kind of thinks, they don't even know if anybody's going to turn up. So they weren't selling. Back in the day, how did you pre-sell tickets and stuff? Did people just come and queue up on the day?
I've no idea.
I know, like, before the internet, like if you were going to go to Glastonbury Festival, I know you, or go and see Madonna or Michael Jackson.
Send off for a ticket.
You'd send off for a ticket, or you go and queue up in HMV. They'd have like a ticket counter.
And you could also buy concert tickets at, what do they call them, holiday places.
Travel agents. Yes, you're right. But I wonder back in like like Woodstock Festival, how would you have got your ticket for Woodstock Festival?
I don't know. Do you think there were outlets in certain bars or maybe clubs?
Or did people literally... Actually, here's what I wonder if...
Just go?
I wonder if they even paid to get in. I don't know.
Yeah, they could have just done it on the door, you know.
You just like...
Just turn
because
up.
What's interesting, the first Willie Nelson 4th of July picnic, he's like, we didn't even know if anybody was going to come. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, people started straggling in.
Yeah.
But then by like the midday, it was absolutely packed to capacity.
Maybe people just turned up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way you used to do things.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And that's the first of many. That's something that goes for years and years, and every year it gets bigger, more people come and play.
And then later on he did that Farm Aid. He got really into the plight of farmers. It's great.
Gosh, the bill for Farm Aid, here it is.
Is amazing.
This is a few.
Yeah, and it was after We Are the World that he realised... Oh, was it Live Aid?
Live Aid.
It was after Live Aid he realised music can make you money for charity, and so he organised Farm Aid.
And it was Bob Dylan. He met Bob Dylan backstage at Live Aid.
Yeah.
And they said, let's do something for the farmers. And so they did Farm Aid, and the bill is... So I think the people who organised it are Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, Chris Christopherson, and maybe Waylon Jennings, I can't remember. Yeah. But the bill of Farm Aid was... So it's those people... plus Billy Joel, B.B. King, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, Merle Haggard, Roy Orbison, Charlie Pride, Bonnie Raitt, Loretta Lynn, Duke Carter, and Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
that's an amazing concert.
And it made $7 million.
$7 million
in the 1980s. Well, in this book, it says it still goes on.
So Atlantic Records, where he's had this amazing commercial success and crossed over to the main pop charts, not just the country charts, closed their Nashville office. Jerry Wexler says to Willie, look, under contract, you should still turn us in 2 more albums, but I'm not going to hold you to that. He said, go off and do your own thing. Willie's manager is really annoyed about this, but like we said before, Willie's never been bothered about money and stuff, and he doesn't care so much. Anyway, he signs then to Columbia Records, and that's when Willie really decides to go back and record things very basically with just a guitar and his voice, and Columbia Records say, you can't put this out, it's not even a finished record. And he says, you said I could do whatever I wanted, this is what's being put out. Turns out to be a massive hit. He records demos with Waylon Jennings which go gold and they cross over. I think because at this time he covers Always on My Mind, which is a massive crossover hit. So he's really now a worldwide star with the bearing and the name of someone like Bob Dylan.
Alongside this, because this goes into the 80s now, doesn't it? He's been in 30 films. And he's quite instrumental in making a couple of them happen. I
didn't even know he'd been in one film, so this is a real surprise to me.
I know that he was in the Dukes of Hazzard remake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he played the, Uncle Jess or whatever. I think that was him. So I've seen him a couple, and Miami Vice, of course.
Oh, wow.
So I knew he did little cameos, but I didn't know he was like a star of old remakes of westerns or something.
He said he realised how many films he'd been in when he sat down at home one day, turned on the TV and a channel were having a Willie Nelson movie weekend.
Wow.
And he was like, well, I've been in enough that a channel can show them all weekend. Yeah. Robert Redford gets him into films first, right, with The Electric Horseman.
Yeah.
Then he did The Red-Headed Stranger, is a film that he had in his head since almost the beginning of his career.
Because he'd written the song, and it was a story song.
And Robert Redford tried for years, he said he would get this film made, and it didn't happen. So in the end, Willie Nelson bought the rights back And then they built this town,
Western town,
on his own farm.
Yeah.
And so they filmed it.
Oh
there,
my God,
this
for like
Western.
an eighth of the budget.
Yeah. And plus he gets to keep
He gets to keep the town, and he obviously hires it out to film studios.
Yeah.
So it's really good investment.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Talking of that song being a story song, he passed up The Gambler.
Oh, the Kenny Rogers
Yeah.
one. Right.
Which is obviously a legendary song. He passed that up because he said, I know this is so good it'll be a massive hit, and then I'll have to play it in every set I ever do.
Yeah.
And I've already got a story song that I wrote, so I'll let it go. And Kenny Rogers then made The Gambler. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the Road Again was made for one of his films. They said, oh, can you write a song? And they were on a plane chatting, and he just wrote it. He says on something like a sick bag. Amazing.
Did you have the bit in your book about the billboard that was put up outside Abbott?
Yes.
They put a billboard up saying Abbott, the home of Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Which obviously drew lots of people in off the interstate highway in search of him. And he said it wasn't so bad when he was at home because he could get rid of people. But when he was on tour and his wife was at home, it's scary to have complete strangers knocking on the door all the time. So him and his friend went and burnt the billboard down. And this kid in the town got arrested for it. And Willie was off on tour at this point, and when he heard, he travelled back and said to them, oh, it wasn't the kid, it was me. And they said to him, well, why did you do it? And he said, well, I don't want people knowing
where I live.
And they said, well, if you'd have told us that, we'd have taken it down. I imagine if you really knew him, you'd know he was from there. But not everybody driving past would know.
I'm pretty sure he'd asked somebody, because it says in my book, once they'd seen we burned it down, that's when they knew I was serious. So that really implies he had asked them.
Right.
At least someone.
I mean, if you are like a massive worldwide icon, the last thing you want is your house signpost.
I wonder if they put the sign up before he moved there, though, saying the home of Willie Nelson, as in the town is where he was
came from.
Maybe, you don't know, it's not clear.
It's not.
My book ends now, so over to you.
So, from when your book ends to like when my book ends, it kind of just continues that thing of just constantly touring, recording, trying to get pot legalized, farm aid, his picnics, everything. On the set of a film, he meets a nice young woman, of course. So Connie's out and Annie's in.
Okay.
She was a makeup artist on The Redhead Stranger. Okay. Yeah, they got married and stayed together. And he records an album with his sister, just the two of them.
Lovely.
Her on piano, him on guitar and singing. I would love to hear that.
Wow.
It's the first time in a long time that they played together. He's still recording now, and he did an album with a producer called Daniel Lenoir, who I'd not heard of, but I really want to listen to this album. He took him to an old abandoned theatre. They didn't have like studio booths and stuff. He was actually on the stage in the theatre.
So you've got the natural sound in
the whole ambience of the whole venue.
Yeah.
Then he got Emmylou Harris in to do like backup vocals and stuff. Willie Nelson says it's a real different sound to what he's used to, and some of his contemporaries didn't like it, but he says he's really proud of it.
Cool. He never stops.
In his 70s, it sounds like he's made two of like really interesting albums.
Yeah.
Whereas most people at that age would be like Sharon, just do an album of ABBA covers.
Which is really good.
No, it's not.
Don't knock it. I haven't heard it all. Anyway.
So Willie Nelson never did an album of ABBA covers. So
Yet. That'd be great if he did. He'd make them his own.
Yeah.
Song's a song. I've got a personal story I'll throw in.
Yeah.
Well, went to Nashville the first time I went. There's like two ends. There's the music bit where all the bars are, and then about half an hour outside that there's where the original Grand Ole Opry was, because it's changed venues. So me and my mate had gone up that end, and we came across two really small buildings next door to each other. One's the Dukes of Hazzard Museum, and the one next to it was the Willie Nelson Museum. And it's really small, but it's got a big pool table and some of his clothes and bits of this and that around. We chatted to the people who ran it. We were the only people in there. It's just a room. And they said they were his really good friends. And when the IRS had taken all of his stuff, I think they'd taken it and auctioned it, they bought a load of his stuff and opened the museum. But because they were such good friends, he came in all the time and played pool on his old pool table.
Oh,
yeah.
sweet.
And he said, he drops in every time he comes into Nashville. He calls in on us, says hello, plays a bit of pool, and then goes on into Nashville. How cool is that?
Yeah, very cool.
And there and then I thought, this is a cool fellow.
He says in his 70s, going into his 80s, so he's 82 when he read my book, he's still doing 150 gigs a year.
Incredible.
So he's still out on the road.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he says his manager came on the tour bus one day with this big carrier bag full of CDs, and he put them on the table, and Willie now said, what's that? He says, this is all the CDs you made. He says, oh, I've done a lot in my career. He said, no, in the last 10 years.
Whoa.
So in his 70s, he was making 2 albums a year.
Wow.
Doing 150 gigs. And you know what? I kind of teared up at the end of the book because the last few lines are just like, life is a journey. And then, you know, at the end of a book where it goes the end, it actually says the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it really touched.
Oh.
God, that's amazing.
Yeah,
so he's like 82.
And that's his attitude.
Had this amazing life, and he's like, life is just getting started.
Oh, he's a massive believer in reincarnation as well.
Very spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very open spiritually, isn't he?
He's a hippie cowboy.
He's a hippie cowboy.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Thrift Shop Biography. We love making this podcast, and we're absolutely thrilled that so many of you are already listening. We're new to this, and you could really help us out by leaving us a review somewhere, wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you could share us, tell your friends about us, or drop some links on social media. We have a Facebook page called Thrift Shop Biography, so make sure you come over there to hear about the episodes first and what else we're up to. Okay, see you next week. And if you're new here, there are loads more episodes now to go and listen in the back catalogue, so make sure you go and enjoy them. Okay, thank you very much.